Hello and welcome to Top Landing Gear and to the second episode based on our recent trip to Lincolnshire, Bomber County, where we visited the Battle of Britain Memorial Flight and operational Typhoon squadrons at RAF Conningsby, took the Dambusters tour at RAF Scampton, went gliding and flew microlights and, as you'll have heard in the previous episode, visited East Kirkby, where the Lincolnshire Aviation Heritage Museum, or Heritage Centre more correctly, is restoring the Lancaster Just Jane to flight. So in a few years we could have two airworthy Lancasters in this country. Now our base for our trip was the wonderful Petwood Hotel, which has incredibly strong links with the RAF, dating from the Second World War, when it was requisitioned as an officers' mess for a number of squadrons based locally. Today's guest is Emma Brealey, who runs the Petwood and does an amazing job in retaining those strong ties with the RAF. We conducted our interview with Emma before, during and after dinner in the hotel squadron bar. Yeah, I have to say, it's become one of Roy's most tortuously difficult interviews to edit. I'm not sure, Roy, how much of it is actually usable. But we will hear a clip of it in today's episode. The full interview, what's left, will be available in our Full Flaps episode. This is Top Landing Gear. So first of all, let's just remind you who we all are. Greying at the temples after slaving for months over an editing desk, our guiding light, soon to be qualified microlight pilot and frontman with the band Scouting for Girls, it's Roy Stride.
Hello.
Hi Roy, our hero. Now next, much like the wine we consumed over dinner at the Petwood, wet, full-bodied, and best left to lie down for a few years in a dark, damp cellar, our professional pilot, James Cartner.
Hello.
Hello,
it's just
Jim.
an abuse now.
Welcome, of course. And much like the county of Lincolnshire itself, vast, spread out and windy. The whiff...
definitely not flat.
Not flat. The whiff of dung is just accepted as part of who he is. My brother and agricultural fencer, Jez Curling.
Hello, everyone.
Hello, Jez.
Hello,
and
Jez.
I'm Rob Curling, altogether rather more fragrant. Chaps, welcome back. We did a piece all about the Lancaster in our previous podcast. Very much looking forward to hearing our interview with Emma at the Petwood Hotel and the history that went there. But before we get on to that, we've got all our usual features. Jez's Quick Facts coming up. We'll have the quiz, of course, and Ask James. Jimbo, we went through a few things last time out. Any questions come in the meantime for James?
Well,
That's all?
I have some questions. We do need some questions. So
Yeah.
anybody who's got any questions, please contact us via the socials. Anything you want to ask James. But I've got always an enormous list of questions.
Good
to
man.
ask James. I want to ask, have you ever thrown somebody off a flight? And what is the procedure?
Yes.
You did?
You're captain.
Yeah.
Yeah. Captain was asking for too much money, so I took it. No, it's I have thrown two drunk passengers off a flight before.
Was that mid-flight?
Was it awkward?
Yes.
Was it
Just
awkward,
open
awkward
the
when you
door.
got home?
Yeah.
The missus?
She wouldn't speak to me for weeks. Yes, no, it's happened while I was doing a Newcastle flight.
Oh, well.
To one of the Balearics.
Sorry, with no disrespect to our
that is-
dear friends in the
It can happen
Northeast.
anywhere.
Of course it can.
And it got. I think a lot of people do drink when they're going on holiday, and they start drinking at 6 o'clock in the morning.
They were going on holiday to Newcastle?
No, they were leaving Newcastle,
I
going
should
to
think
the
so, yes.
the Balearics.
Oh, right,
and,
okay.
They'd started drinking at 6 a.m. and this was a 6 p.m. flight, so they'd had a little bit too much. And part of the rule, the laws of the country are that you are not allowed to fly under the influence of alcohol.
What, even as a passenger?
As a passenger, as in if you're
Even
inebriated.
even really a couple of units.
Yeah,
isn't it? That's
well,
the
you
law,
have to be in
isn't it?
control.
Yeah.
And if you're considered to be inebriated, you can be refused flight. And I think everyone there's a little bit of leeway there with most people, but this was just ridiculous. They'd already started to try and rip the loos to pieces,
Right.
and if
On
they're
the
doing that
aircraft.
on the aircraft, if they're doing that on the ground, then you know it's not going to be a good flight.
Yeah.
The last thing you want to do is seal yourself in an aluminium tube with these people for the next 4 hours.
Yeah.
Because they've got nowhere else to go, and altitude and everything makes things even worse. So generally, it's filtered out before it gets to the aircraft, but occasionally people like to sort of pass the buck.
Yeah.
When it gets to the aircraft, the cabin crew came up and said, and I was working with Newcastle cabin crew, and they've seen quite a lot.
Right.
Not that Newcastle's particularly special. He said, hoping
Please be
for a
very
anti-northern backlash, but they'd seen a lot, and but this was too much for them, and they just said that they're trying to destroy the aircraft. We can't take them.
Yeah.
And it was just time I had to on the ground. It's fair enough. I went to the back and said, "You're gonna have to get off."
Were you the captain?
I was the captain, and
Because you're not a captain anymore, are you?
no,
No, first officer.
I'm first officer now.
So you were a captain in the past.
I was a captain.
We won't
in the
ask
past.
about what happened in
No.
between.
because I decided to change airlines
Oh,
to
okay.
go for the long haul.
Sorry. Yeah.
And so I had to throw them off the aircraft, and I invited them to leave. They decided not to, and there were procedures, and then we called the police, and the police came on board and escorted them off the aircraft
Wow.
with a minimum fuss and bother, and they lost their tickets.
Goodness
Was
me.
there general applause? And the
Yeah,
rest
yeah,
of the,
there is, because everybody, nobody likes to fly. Everyone's great when there's a little bit. I mean, I remember doing a flight from Glasgow to Ibiza on a Friday evening.
Will you
That's
please
like
stop
a dream
typecasting?
That was a great flight. But during the approach, normally the cabin crew give you a call on the interphone and say that the cabin's secure for landing. Well, I heard the bing bong, picked up the intercom and said yes, and I couldn't hear anything. All I could hear was singing. And the whole flight was just a massive chant of singing. I said, "What? It's cabin secure!" Finally, she got the message. Okay, got it. Thank you. And it was just a party atmosphere. I mean, obviously a lot of fun, but yeah, difficult. No difficult passengers that day, but an interesting environment to work in.
I've had a couple of flights, a bit like that, where
Your stag.
Yeah, I'm thinking of your stag.
yeah, well, I
How
wasn't
on
thinking of
earth
that
did we get
actually. Yeah, that was extraordinary, wasn't it? I don't know why they let me on. But I remember I was on a rugby tour in Jersey many years ago, and a mutual friend of ours, actually, I won't mention him on air, I'll tell you afterwards.
Who was it? If you were to mention him, who would it be?
His name was Tim Lowe.
Oh, yeah.
His name still is Tim Lowe, actually.
Yes.
Got absolutely banjaxed before the flight, and we got to check in, and they said no way you're getting on the flight. It's a bit of a panic, and luckily one of the guys I was playing with, who's in our team, was as an MP, a military policeman, and so he said, if I arrest him, can he get on the flight? He says, as long as you arrest him and he's under your control, you can get on the flight.
Really?
So he arrested him, and he was under arrest for the drive, and he released him at the end of the flight. I mean, he wasn't handcuffed, but
That is-
and he wasn't being Tim wasn't. He wasn't being. Sorry, did I say Tim?
Jim.
Jim. Bim.
Yeah.
Wasn't being aggressive or anything. He was just very drunk and quite loud. And so we arrested him and then released him.
That's a great story.
Yeah. So that was quite funny.
This is another question which I have on these flights, where the fun flights, when you're doing the long haul and you have the nights off in a swanky hotel, obviously not at the moment.
Yeah.
Do you hang out as a crew?
Yes, generally,
Yeah.
but not always. It can depend on the makeup of the crew, because often in many companies, particularly mine, the cabin crew will be working on a different pattern to you, so they might be only there for one night and you're there for 2 nights. But generally, on a long trip, you'll all get to know each other, and you'll go out, and if the cabin crew, which are generally sort of much younger people than the pilots, want to listen to our boring stories about our pensions and how flaps work, they're welcome to come and
already what this is.
Which
There's the
podcast you
two
do.
old guys and the cabin crew. Like, are we going to be polite? How long do we have to stay here? When are they going to go to bed?
So some cabin crew are quite polite, others
Yeah.
just don't invite you.
Right.
They've gone out. Where are the crew? Oh, they've gone. Oh, really? Which you can kind of understand.
And are you friends with the captain? Do you generally fly with the same captain?
No, it's often
all
different.
completely.
I mean,
right.
I flew my present company. I think I'd been flying for about 18 months before I'd flown with a captain twice.
Wow.
God.
Okay, so you're not
So-
making really close friends like
I
that.
never do.
You
Some
know,
weeks-
yeah.
But it's the same with
Yeah,
crew.
no.
It's not like people who crop up all the time.
No, it's. I mean, but because some airlines work on seniority, and so you kind of tend to end up with people of roughly the same seniority on the captain's list and on the first officer's list
Right.
as you. So it does crop up a little bit.
Yeah.
But in my lot, there are so many pilots that it does take a while to fly with someone twice.
Right. Wow.
But you do. But you sort of. It is amazing how through the selection procedure or whatever, we're all quite similar people because we
Yeah.
have to be because
Yeah,
they
yeah.
recruit a particular type of person for their skills.
Pilots.
Pilots. And we have that in common that we talk about flying.
yeah.
But no, so it's very rare to find. I must have been very lucky. It's been very rare to find someone that you don't really get on with.
Yeah.
And so most people are up for a drink.
Yeah.
Occasionally people want to go and do their own thing or they
Yeah.
bring a family with them. So you're
Yeah.
sometimes left alone by that. But that's, again, part of the job. You have to be able to entertain yourself for 48 hours if you are on your own.
In the early days of the airlines, I think certainly some airlines tried to keep the same crew together for everything. So that's pilots, flight engineers, navigators, and cabin crew, so that everyone knew how each other worked. And from a safety point of view, I can kind of see that
It's a double-edged
That makes
sword, to be fair, because you can get to know each other very well, but you can also become almost, I'd say over-familiar, but you become so used to the other person doing something that you start to assume they've done it, even when they may not have done. So the constituted crews idea, I worked for an airline that had it for about 3 months. I was with the same first officer, which is great if you've got a good guy.
Yeah.
But if you don't get on, and I knew people who didn't get on,
yes,
they were stuck with that person for 3 months.
Yeah.
And every trip was hell.
yeah.
But I say you do. We did it in the Air Force out in the Gulf, where it would be for the entire campaign, would be with the same crew, and that got incredibly efficient because you knew what each other was thinking. You didn't really have to explain things. You have to be on your guard for the fact that you think this person might have done what he's done 99 times before and may have missed it that time. You've always got to watch out for that. But there are benefits to both.
So obviously, like going back to what we were talking about, the Lancaster in the last episode, and obviously quite heavily Lancaster based.
Yeah.
This whole series is during the war. Those crews stuck together for their
Yeah.
30
Yeah.
operations,
Yeah.
didn't they? And it was very much a crew, trying to all see each other through those 30 ops. I
They
suppose
soon got rid of the guys they didn't like there, didn't they?
I think they
They
were.
had navigators
Yeah.
who couldn't get them there. So I think
Yeah.
particularly navigators actually
Yeah.
seemed to be the sort of guys, if they went up to scratch, they soon got
Yeah.
rooted out.
So, and I think there are those important jobs in that crew which you can't. There's nobody wants to see a weak navigator, a weak pilot, or even a weak flight engineer, because they're such pivotal posts in the aircraft, and they are vital to you staying alive.
Yeah.
yeah.
So I think it's the constituted crew particularly. It does save training because you are training together, if you like. But you have to be careful.
I always thought in the crew that you'd really want like a fairly shoddy bomb aimer who was just like, yeah, done, let's go. You don't want the guy who's like, no, keep going. You're there at the back going, come on.
What I'd never really appreciated about the bomb aimers, they actually had quite an important role as a navigator sort of backup.
yeah.
Because they had the best view
Yeah.
in many instances from because navigator, certainly in Lancaster, couldn't even see out.
No.
Yeah.
So he was literally working off his charts and whatever else they worked on.
And if you do the taxi ride
Yeah.
at the Lincolnshire Aviation Centre, which I did do, I took the bomb aimer's position and it was incredible. I've got a great framed photo of me there and the view is spectacular. I had probably one of the worst hangovers of my life because it was the bass player's birthday. And so I also enjoyed the fact I could lie down for the entire taxi ride as well.
Right. Okay. The focus of this podcast, as we know, once again, is Lincolnshire Bomber County, boasting more airfields than Jez has had hot dinners this week. Here then are Jez's Lincolnshire quick facts.
Well, there are 6 current airfields in Lincolnshire.
So
So that is about right,
So you're
actually.
going to say there were 6 facts, which we're hoping for.
No, there are more than
good
that.
for a moment.
You can edit them out if you don't like them, and if you don't like the way I'm doing it, you can edit them out or just edit the whole thing out. Lincolnshire is big.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, in fact, it's the second largest ceremonial county in England. I don't know what that means, but it's the second largest. I did try and look it up. It was such a long answer, I gave up.
I think
One job,
I think
Jess.
the whole, the whole of Yorkshire.
I could have run a whole thing just on that. Lincolnshire is famously known, as we all know, as Bomber County, and during World War II, it's thought that there were more than 100 military airfields, including emergency landing strips and other sort of satellite strips. The bulk of all bombers took off from the county with its proximity to Germany, making it an ideal setting off point. There are now 6 operational bases in Lincolnshire, and of course it is home to the Red Arrows at Scampton, which is the Dambusters base, of course, and the BBMF and Typhoon jets at Conningsby. RAF officer and engineer Frank Whittle invented jet travel in the heavily guarded secrecy of RAF Cranwell at Sleaford. And on May the 15th, 1941, the first British jet-powered plane took off from a base there on a historic 17-minute flight, sort of a life-changing moment in history, really. Yeah. Lincoln City's contribution to modern warfare was the invention of the tank, built by William Foster & Co. during the First World War. And if you thought Lincolnshire is only known for farming and bombers, you'd be wrong. County town Woodhull Spa was to boast a coal mine, but fortuitously got a spa instead, and luckily for us, also the fabulous Petwood Hotel. The Petwood Hotel has a fantastic history, but of interest to this podcast is its time as the home of the legendary 617 Dambusters squadron. The RAF occupied the hotel from 1942, and it was originally home to officers of both 97 and 619 squadrons. The squadron bar hosts a range of memorabilia and tributes to Wing Commander Guy Gibson and Group Captain Leonard Cheshire, and amongst many others. And of course, Top Landing Gear regard the Petwood Hotel as our spiritual home.
We do. Cheeky of us, isn't it? But Jess, thanks for that. And there is a family tie-in with you and Emma, who runs the Petwood.
Well, I mean, this was the most fortuitous thing, really. Especially
what about getting married, you mean?
One of the most fortuitous things was when I discovered that my sister-in-law's sister, who is Emma, owns and runs the Petwood Hotel, and with its connection to the Dambusters, I was incredibly excited to find that that is a sort of an easy link for us. And when Roy said that we were going to go and do the, or invited me to go and do the taxi run, I said, okay, listen, I know this hotel in Woodhull Spa, it's just down the road, we've got to go and stay there. And so it's all sort of come together from there. So yeah, incredibly lucky.
And we had, for Greg's 40th birthday, we had dinner booked in the squadron bar.
Oh.
And then obviously we had our dinner at the
We
squadron
had
bar.
our dinner, our top
With
landing
Emma.
in the squadron bar. I do remember it quite well.
All of it?
No. As our poor listeners might hear when we get to the full flaps version. But the history is amazing, and there was so much stuff on display. Loads of photographs, loads of illustrations and paintings, but physical memorabilia, bits of aircraft,
pilots' uniforms and all sorts of helmets, and
the stick, that massive branch. Emma tells the story that went through the cockpit of an airborne Lancaster bomber on a low-level run somewhere. That is hanging above the bar. It's extraordinary.
It would be really nice to do another interview with Emma maybe one day where we can actually...
Where we're all sober.
Well, when you're sober, when we can actually walk and talk around the hotel, and she could describe some of what's in there, because it's everywhere.
I think that was one of the plans, except I could neither walk nor talk.
The squadron bar is beautiful, though.
Yes,
if you
it
want
is.
to have dinner there, you have to get in there early and book it, because it's, I think you can fit 12 people maybe.
Yeah, and it's wood panelled, isn't it? It's a beautiful room.
Yeah, the hotel's huge.
The whole the grounds are fantastic, and there is a remnants of a bouncing bomb in the grounds.
And also, if you're lucky enough, the BBMF, when they recover to Conningsby, often use it as a bit of a visual marker for their approach into Conningsby, and you very frequently get a low-level Lancaster over the rooftops.
With a little wind waggle.
Yeah, I also think they're all incredibly good friends. I mean, everywhere we went in Lincolnshire, to all the airfields. Oh, we know the Petwood. We know Emma.
Yeah, even the gliding guys.
Yeah.
It's fantastic. Talking about the BBMF going over, if you follow the Petwood Hotel on Instagram, there is always, Emma's always there with the video of I think this week the Dakota went over.
Yes, it did.
One of the first the first flights of the BBMF this year. So
because they're always in touch. And I think that just underlines what an incredibly good relationship they have, and how important the Petwood is to the RAF and its history, and how much they all recognise and appreciate that. I think it's
well, the hotel
fantastic.
embrace it. I mean, the family.
I want to use this whole series to encourage everybody to have do their Lincolnshire. It's like the Mecca, isn't it?
Yeah,
it's almost.
Really, I mean, there were typhoons going overhead every few minutes. I mean, living here in Surrey, you're lucky if you get a Piper Cherokee every half hour, and that's it.
That's Roy doing his circuit.
That's right.
Trying to find somewhere to land.
Or we get a Chinook. And all we do is take a photo of it and send it to James.
Yeah, that's right.
Ask how much it can lift.
Yeah, absolutely.
But it's definitely, even when we went to Conningsby, and I think I say this in one of the interviews that's coming up, is I didn't, we were lucky enough to go inside and get shown round, and we got on the Typhoon simulator and into the Typhoon. But when we came out of the BBMF, of the experience there, you see all the Typhoons, and there's just hundreds of people just watching all the Typhoons doing their
spotters.
thing. The spotters, yeah. But it's not
Big
like
Jet TV was there, wasn't it?
Yeah, it's not like it's hidden away. There's just like a fence which you can see through.
What amazed me is
everything that goes on.
Yeah.
It's like,
because when I was last at Conningsby, there were
actual Lancasters there.
The BBMF were
Manchester.
There were
when you
it was a
were
tornado
serving.
when I was serving.
Yeah.
It was an F3 tornado F3 base, and there were 2 squadrons, 5 Squadron, 29 Squadron, and the OCU, the Operation Conversion Unit. And I don't remember there being more than about 35 aircraft there for those 3 units.
Oh, right.
There probably were a few more. But you go there now, and there are hundreds of Typhoons.
I know.
I mean, admittedly, there are no aircraft anywhere else in the RAF.
bases.
Yeah, that is the problem. There are no aircraft anywhere else.
Because nowhere the RAF is getting bigger. No.
But there were hundreds there. I mean, I was gobsmacked by the number. And they were in the hangar and said, "Oh, those are the old ones. We don't use those anymore."
Yeah.
Yes, the 2-seaters.
Tranche
To
one
me, the
and-
Typhoon still seems really new.
I agree with you, but they are phasing. The older ones are being phased out, aren't they?
We're going to save the Typhoon talk for the Typhoon episode 4.
Okay.
And the glider talk, because
Yes.
the gliding we did was the biggest surprise of me of that trip, because I thought, gliders.
Yeah, we've seen Typhoons.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I've been in Lancaster. But it was the glider.
We definitely
was
came closer to death
absolutely-
in the glider than we did in
both on the
Typhoons.
ground and in the air. Yeah. It was brilliant. I loved that. I loved that gliding.
It was terrific.
Yeah, the whole
What
thing
a
was
trip. Well, look, shall we hear from our special guest this week then, Emma Brealey, who runs that magnificent place, the Petwood Hotel. And as we've been saying, during the Second World War, it served as the officers' mess for a number of RAF squadrons, including 617, the Dambusters. And as such, as we've been saying, Petwood's ties with the RAF are incredibly strong, and it continues to host squadron reunions and gatherings. And Emma has a wealth of incredible stories about Petwood and its long association with the RAF, which you'll be able to hear in our full Flaps episode if Roy can edit it together. But here's just a taster of what's to come. Well, we've come to the end of what has been yet another extraordinary day of highlights and treats in lovely Lincolnshire. And our base for this tour has been the Petwood Hotel, which is in Woodhall Spa. And it is run by Emma Brealey, who is with us tonight. And Emma, we are so delighted to be here. Thank you so much for allowing us to use your hotel. And you have a personal connection with us anyway through my brother Jez. We'll come on to that in a minute. But first of all, the Petwood has a huge amount of aviation history and connection, doesn't it?
Oh, it absolutely does. So it was requisitioned by the RAF in the Second World War in 1942. And I'm sure there were very many merry nights here in the on the officers' mess. It was already a hotel when it was requisitioned by the RAF. So there was already a bar, most importantly.
Yeah.
And we've got some great stories about how these young men were holed up here during the war. They had a pretty comfortable wartime living here.
Yeah. And we are actually now in the Squadron Bar, which is just lovely. It's quite snug. There is memorabilia everywhere. It's an oak-panelled dining room or room with beams. but memorabilia, bits of Lancaster there. I mean, just talk to us, Emma, if you would. Just explain what some of the things surrounding us are here in this bar.
Well, what you can see here in the Squadron Bar is 40 years of collecting from various hotel owners through the past. I think possibly most interestingly, we've got an unusual object hanging above the bar here. We've got a branch.
It's a huge branch.
It is, and you do have to spot it carefully because it's brown on brown, but once you spot it, there's no getting away from the fact that there is essentially a big lump of wood hanging above the bar.
Yes.
And this story dates back to 617 Squadron's Tirpitz bombing raids. So they were based at RAF Woodhall Spa. It was a 617 Squadron bombing raid, and they took off from Woodhall Spa, long flying time, about 9 hours, so they needed to refuel on the way. And they were refuelling in northern Russia when, with the tall boy, I should mention.
The tall boy bomb?
Yeah, absolutely, still loaded. So they had to refuel, but getting height quickly enough after takeoff was pretty challenging. And the pilot, Nicky Nillens, who was an American pilot who'd signed up with the Royal Canadian Air Force, his Lancaster just brushed the tops of the trees.
Yeah.
In through the nose of the Lanc wedged this piece of wood. And so it was with them for the duration of their flight.
You're kidding.
So I'm not kidding. They flew on to Norway, dropped the bomb on the Tirpitz, and came back to RAF Woodhall Spa, and the lads hoiked it out, the Lancan hung it above the bar as a memento.
I have to explain to our listeners, this is huge. This is about 15 feet long, I would think.
It's sizable.
And I was thinking a diameter of about 4 inches. And it didn't do any damage to anybody inside the aircraft? I mean, did it go through the bomb as plexiglass or something?
It ended up closer to the pilot, so it was fairly miraculous that it didn't do any damage, but it was fairly well lodged in there for it to have gone on the rest of the bombing raid with them.
Flying with that in your leg would have been difficult.
That would... I can't believe that.
It is most of a tree.
It's huge. I mean, so that went all the way from Russia on the bombing run over the Tirpitz and back here to Woodhall Spa, which is where we are.
Absolutely.
It's unbelievable.
Making a run.
And remember, you'll be able to hear Emma's full, I can't say unedited, because it's been shredded to pieces out of necessity.
It was definitely an interview of two halves.
It was just before and after the
Starter,
wine.
main course, and pudding.
Indeed. But it will be her as full interview as Roy could string together that makes it in any way coherent edition in our Full Flaps edition, which will be available a week after this podcast first drops. So depending on when you're listening to this, it might already be there. So just to be clear, Emma was in total control. It was the rest of us who got a little bit emotional. That's all to come. But how about now, ladies and gentlemen, the highlight of this podcast and every podcast, the Top Landing Gear Quiz.
Hey.
Hey, hooray!
Hooray! Everyone's thrilled. Good. Now, this week's quiz is going to be all about Lincolnshire. I mean, I tried to keep it predominantly aviation, but it's quite difficult because I wanted to make it...
Well, there's not much aviation stuff in Lincolnshire.
Well, no. Well, I didn't want it to be everything that Jez had in his quick facts, and I still wanted it to be things that perhaps you were capable of answering. So, let's see how we go.
Do you want to hear our buzzers?
Oh yeah, let's hear the buzzers. Yeah, what have you brought, Jez?
I've got two.
There you go.
Just in case. I'll give you both. I've got this one.
Copyright issues with that, I think.
So that is BBC Radio Lincolnshire's Song of the Year.
Yes, with Roy.
That was Roy. And in a similar vein...
The Weekend and Blinding Lights and Jason Derulo, Nuka, Love Not War. Thank you very much. A little after 10:30, this is John Marshall.
John Marshall!
So I've got my John Marshall.
Do we should explain who John
FM.
Marshall is? Because we mentioned him here. John Marshall is an absolute legend in Lincolnshire. He has been a good friend of Scout for Girls since we first did a regional radio tour, probably in 2007.
That sounds very Partridge.
Yeah.
It was very bad. He took us under his wing. He was the
Partridge
breakfast show. He was the breakfast show DJ at the time. It's gone downhill since. And we've been friends with him, for
He's a
over
legend,
a decade
John.
now.
Which one would you like?
Well,
should I
definitely
answer?
John.
Should I
For
answer the
sure,
question
because
again? Not Roy.
John was, he fixed up our trip, and he came with us every inch.
Yeah.
He lived with us.
We did.
Oh, bless him.
On that
Good.
flat old land.
Okay, so that's your buzzer. Roy, what have you got?
Well, this is going to slightly awkward, this.
Oh, yeah. Oh, that's good. For your chance to win a massage this good, enter our all-wrapped-up competition on the website, linksfm.com.uk on the win page before the end of the day, Wednesdays, with Simpsons Spa. Gary and Joseph.
I need to use this one.
It's John
John
Marshall
Marshall,
again.
yeah.
Oh, that's lovely.
Two John Marshalls.
John at his peak.
I went very much along the Dambusters still. Bomb gone.
Noise, isn't
Just
it?
a
Bomb
load
gone.
of shash.
Okay.
Is bomb gone?
Oh, bomb gone. Brilliant. Was that authentic or was that from the film?
That's
Was that from the Carnival? though?
It's authentic. He's made it himself. It's definitely not from the film, Rob.
it's not from the film because that would have rights
Copyright.
issues.
Absolutely right. Yeah. Good. Well done. Well, if I can hear that, fantastic. So, ladies and gentlemen, here we go then with the Top Landing Gear Lincolnshire quiz. Now, like Norfolk, Lincolnshire is famous for its diverse forms of irrigation. Jesus Christ. Lincolnshire is also famous for its eponymous sausage, the speciality ingredient being sage. Now, sage also...
Is anyone still listening?
No listeners
Is there a
now.
question here?
Everyone's just turned off.
Sage also has a link to aviation.
That's good.
Can you...
For your chance to win a massage this
Malaya.
enter our all-wrapped-up
No. Can you name anything to do with aviation called sage? Yes, James.
I'm taking a bit of a wild guess.
Go on.
Some sort of radar, like chaff type things. It's a way of hiding an aircraft.
Yeah, it's a lovely idea, but no, funnily enough, not. I like where you're going with that, James. Nice. Anyone else?
Oh, yeah.
Yes, John. Roy. Yes?
Operation Sage.
Not Operation Sage. These are all lovely answers.
Oh, okay.
They're great. Jez, you'll have to buzz if you want to answer.
I haven't got an answer.
What's in your
Well,
pie?
the others have got a little bit of imagination. show us what you're made of. No? Oh.
The Weekend and Blinding Lights and Jason Derulo, Nuka, love, not war. Thank you.
Thank you.
Is it an anagram of Southern Area Group Evacuation?
Very nearly. It is an anagram, so I'm going to give you a point.
What?
It's an anagram for System for Assessing Aviation's
Okay,
Global
that's not an anagram.
Emissions.
That's a mnemonic.
Well done, James. Not to you. That's absolutely brilliant. Well done.
I get a point
love
anyway?
that, because that's people get that so wrong.
Yeah.
Don't they, so often.
So
Well done. Yeah, you get a point.
it's
I
an
get a
anagram
point
of
anyway.
ages.
Yeah. Well done.
Which is what this quiz is taking.
There was also a Sage Type 2 aircraft, which was built by Frederick Sage, who was a carpenter in Peterborough, which they flew. It's First World War biplane, which they flew. They flew them at Cranwell and crashed them. Only a few were made. It was also known as the Flying Boudoir because it had an enclosed cockpit. Now, for the purposes, ladies and gentlemen,
We're
of this
losing listeners
recording,
by the
I'm now
second.
going to show members of the team a photograph of a Sage biplane. That's what it looked
Wow. That's
It's like a
amazing.
Submarine coning tower.
That is quite incredible. To
That
hear.
is insane.
I mean, it doesn't look like it has the endurance to need any wind deflection at all. By the time it got airborne, it'll be time to land, surely. But
It is absolutely extraordinary. Very few were built.
I'm not surprised.
We will put that up on the...
It doesn't matter. Anybody who's still listening has already Googled that.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, but there we are. It was a real thing.
Wow, extraordinary.
Now, as we know, Lincolnshire is known as Bomber County because of the plethora of bomber airfields located there during World War II. One such airfield is RAF Scampton, from where 617 Squadron launched Operation Chastise. But which airfield did the makers of the film The Dambusters use to represent Scampton, which was at the time of the raids a grass airfield, but when, of course, they filmed The Dambusters, it had a tarmac runway, so they had to film those sequences at another airfield. Which one?
It was where we did our gliding film, wasn't it?
Well done.
Yeah.
Well done, Jimbo.
It began with C. Did it?
No, it sounds a bit like a C. It's more of a kicking curve. Oh. Yes, Jez.
Kurt.
Come on. What do you hang from your windows?
Curtain.
Yes.
Curtain wall hanger.
Curtain Heath.
Curtain
In.
Curtain in.
The marsh. Curtain in. Curtain in the field. Curtain
Right.
on the
No,
hill.
I'm Jimbo and Jez. I'm taking both your points away from the first question for not being able to answer the second. So we're all back to zero. It was Curtain in Lindsay. Do you remember? That's where we did our gliding from.
It
You're
was,
absolutely
it
right.
was.
That's what they used in the Dambusters film for the grass airstrip sequences. Now then, question number 3. The Red Arrows will be moving out of their base at Scampton at the end of 2022 to relocate to another RAF base in Lincolnshire. Which one? Yes, James. You've got this wrong in the past, by the way.
I'm going to get it right this time. Waddington.
Correct. RAF Waddington. They've been at Scampton since 1983, apart from a little 5-year gap between 95 and 2000 when they were based at Cranwell. I think they were...
Berks and Heath. They were based at Cranwell, but they did all their training over Berks and Heath.
Nice one. Very good, Jim. So Jim gets his point back on the board. Question number whichever. The Gate Guardian at Scampton is currently an ex-Red Arrows Hawk. But before the Hawk, a couple of Lancasters stood guard. Yes, James.
Just Jane.
I mean, I haven't actually asked the question yet, but the answer is Just Jane, because the first of those Lancasters was the very famous S for Sugar, the oldest surviving Lancaster, which is in the RAF Museum at Hendon.
It is.
The next one was indeed Just Jane, from 77 to 87, before it moved to East Kirkby, where it now
Was
is.
it called Just Jane then?
No, no, it wasn't. It was
But the point
just
stands.
NX611. It does, doesn't it? Because the
So was it NX611 and not Just Jane?
Very good. Very
nice
good.
one. Good try, Roy. I'll bear that in mind.
Okay.
If the scores get close, I'll bear that in mind. On the subject of Gate Guardians, which specific aircraft stands guard at RAF Waddington?
Oh, yeah.
Yes. Oh, dear, this troubles me.
Is it a Lightning?
It's not a Lightning. No, incorrect. Yes, James.
It is. It's a Vulcan,
Very good.
and it is the one that did the Falklands raid.
Well, I can tell you which one it is.
Well, unfortunately, you're a bit too late. I think I'm gonna have to do
X-ray, Zulu,
XM.
X-ray Mike, 411 or something.
That's wrong.
Jez?
It's XM607.
Correct.
607.
XM607, which, as you correctly say, was on the Black Buck raids, did 3 of the raids, actually, that aircraft, twice in the hands of Martin Withers and once under squadron leader John Reeve. Yeah, that stands at the end of the runway at RAF Waddington.
Which unfortunately we couldn't see because I had to get home.
Yeah, I desperately wanted to have a little detour on the way home. So can I just say the scores as we go into the final question are Roy, yet to get off the mark. Jez has 1. James has 3. Sorry, people.
Well, it's never too late to deduct points.
Never too late. You're absolutely right. And there's a big chance for that to happen now in this quite lengthy question, where there are lots of options. And it's about rivers in Lincolnshire. Now, Rolls-Royce had a tradition of naming their aero engines after British rivers. 2 such rivers flow through Lincolnshire. Name either, and for a bonus point, name an aircraft that is or was powered by one of these engines. So we want a Lincolnshire river after which a Rolls-Royce aero engine has been named.
Lights and Jason Derulo, Nuka, love, not war. Thank you very much.
John Marshall,
And
a.k.a.
then after half 10, this
Just
is John
Jane.
Marshall. You can sit and
Hello, John.
I think this is wrong, but it's the only one I can think of.
Okay.
So I'm going to have to say Trent.
You're right.
Oh.
The Trent, and it's a big river, Very big river, actually, the third longest in the UK. It's also a very widely used aero engine.
It is.
So, Jez, do you know which? Just name one of the numerous airliners it's currently used in.
Well, Boeing's.
Yep. Any particular Boeing?
I think 787 and the 777.
Bang on. Jez, you've got 2 points here. That's a stunner. Absolute stonker. Airbus A330, the 340, the 340-500 and 600, the 350, the 380, the 777 and the 787. And you beat Jimbo, who happens to fly 777s, with the Trent. Yeah. Well done. You should be proud of yourself. But actually, there's still another point on offer. Ooh. There's one more river to mention. Another Lincolnshire river that gave its name to a Rolls-Royce aero engine. I'll give you a clue. It's quite an early jet engine.
Conway.
Need a buzzer. James.
It's not. I'm not going for Conway, but you're welcome to that point if you get it. I'm going to say I'm not even sure it's through Lincoln, but does the Avon go through?
No, I think it's a bit further west.
The Avon's in through Bath. That should be a point off.
There are a few
There are quite a few Avons actually.
Yes.
Oh my God, you won't stop.
Yes.
I don't think this is a river, but I'm going to say Conway.
It is a river, and it's not the Conway. Right. No. Roy, do you want?
I have no idea.
It's actually the Neen. I know it's a little bit obscure.
I can tell you.
Go on.
The Hunter.
Actually,
that was the Avon.
Used in the Hunter. That was the Avon, but the Neen was around in those days. It was used on things like
they used a Neen in some of the Hunters.
Not sure. It's used in
the special fit one.
It was used in the Hawker Seahawk, so it could have perhaps gone over to an early Hunter. But there we are. It was an early turbojet, and in fact, early testing of the Neen was done by an Avro Lancastrian development of the Lancaster. So full circle. But there we are. Well done. Some very, very good answers there. We actually have a tiebreak because the final scores are Roy 0, Jez 3, Jimbo 3. So I have one final question, our tiebreaker, and it's a really difficult one.
Oh.
We were treated to some microlight flights at what was RAF Wickenby, a base for 12 and 626 Squadron Lancasters. Just next to the control tower and the clubhouse is a missile. Do you remember? Oh, God. Can you remember what type of missile it is, James?
Bloodhound.
No, not a Bloodhound. Jez.
It was something like a Sea Strike.
Oh, my God. I'm giving you that. It's called a Sea Slug.
Sea Slug.
That is phenomenal knowledge, because I'd never heard of it. It is indeed a Sea Slug surface-to-air missile.
Yeah.
Jez, that is a cracking answer on which to win the quiz with 4 points. Jimbo with 3. Roy.
Actually worth winning with just to mention the word sea. That's definitely worth a win. Well done.
Thank you very much.
If it makes it any better, I don't even remember seeing the missile.
I do. It's ages looking at it.
Where was the missile?
It was
literally next door to the clubhouse.
Where we were standing.
I was convinced there was a Bloodhound out the front there.
I know. I thought it was
that was at the other. And what aircraft was it that was in bits? That was a Hunter, wasn't it?
In bits, with the old Neen engine.
The Neen engine, yeah. I'm going to look that up. I'm certain.
Well done, boys. That was quite a tough quiz. Quite tough to do a Lincolnshire. You found
I won a tough quiz.
Yeah, I know.
Not an easy quiz, tough quiz.
Yeah.
Me.
Well done. Chaps, anything else you want to discuss before we sign off and let our dear old listeners go and get the
No.
What's next?
Go visit Lincoln.
That's what I'd like to know.
Petwood.
What's our next?
Okay,
episode?
well, I'll tell you. More, of course, from our trip to Lincolnshire, including a Dambusters special. Now, that was recorded at their base, the Dambusters base at RAF Scampton. And there'll also be our visit to the Battle of Britain Memorial Flight at RAF Conningsby, and much more. In the meantime, you can, of course, still listen to all our podcasts from Series 1 and 2 from the Top Landing Gear archive. And you can get those wherever you normally get your podcasts. Please do get in touch with us on Twitter, Facebook and Instagram at Top Landing Gear. And do email us your questions for us, James, at info@toplandinggear.com. That's info@toplandinggear.com. And remember, 2Gs. And however you're listening to us, please recommend us to your friends and family and do leave a review, but only if you've enjoyed it. In the meantime, thank you so much for listening and for staying awake. Bye for now. This is Top Landing Gear.